All right, let's roll. We're recording on Panda. It shows 7:05 p.m. as we worked out some connection issues. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Village of Reddick Village Board Workshop meeting. Today is February 18th. It's our normally scheduled workshop night, but tonight we're going to continue working on the police reform project. And I just wanted to assert, as is our custom, that we're meeting tonight virtually under Executive Order 202.1 and continuing. We're still in COVID mode, so we can't be in the same building and room together, which is hard. But just for the record here, we'll make sure we have a quorum. I know I see faces, but let's just make an actual record so the clerk can record it. Blondell is here. Mr. Kowalczyk, you there?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Ms. Norris?
Yes.
Mr. Noonan?
Yes.
And Mr. Lang?
Yes.
Good. So we have everybody here on duty in virtual world. And what I thought we'd do too is just remind folks that are out in the general public listening land. Tonight on the 18th, we had kept open a public hearing, public comment section on the police reform plan, as was our design and plan from our main monthly meeting on February 8th. We allowed written comment in an interim time. And tonight, public hearing comment section continues. But just for those that might be new to the call, it's a hybrid of blending what used to be a public hearing in analog world. We now do in virtual world, but some of the protocols still apply. We don't have a sign-in sheet per se, but we have a co-host tonight who will allow people to raise their hand if they want to speak. Let me give a couple rules on that. When recognized, the person speaking will be invited to state their name and addresses. And unless otherwise determined by the mayor, the time to be allotted to each speaker is 3 minutes. Once all persons wishing to speak have spoken once, any person wishing to speak a second time may do so for a maximum of 2 minutes. Comments must pertain to the subject of the public hearing, and that is the Executive Order 203 and the village's intention to work and create a police reform and redesign plan, and to have it done for submission by April 1. As far as decorum, no member of the public is permitted to speak during the public hearing unless recognized by the mayor. All remarks should be addressed to the board and not to the audience. All persons speaking will be given respect and courtesy, and in return are expected to be respectful and courteous. The use of profane, slanderous, inappropriate language and boisterous conduct is not acceptable. And we practiced with this 10 days ago, so it worked pretty well. What I'll say is since the February 8th session, we did take in public comment through that info at redhooknyvillage.org. They'll be made a part of the record. They exist in a paper printed out format. They've been circulated to all the board members. Many came in as late as about 5:30 p.m. today. So I've been able to get through them and read them, but I'm not sure about everybody else, but they will be reviewed and considered as we continue the job and the project here. With that being said, like I mentioned in other meetings, we're in workshop format. They're less formal. Those who were at our Monday meeting on the 8th, that included our department meetings and so forth. But tonight is a little more thinking and working in action. So that's the format and the outlook for tonight. I will point out too, by its nature, a public hearing, public comment session is the board and the mayor listen. We're under no obligation to respond or answer questions. We're trying to take input from the public on the plan that's been up and posted on our website and different locations. So that'd be our intent tonight. And many of our people have been attending. We have a stakeholder group. We have a working whole bunch of people have been pretty active in this since around January. And most people are pretty familiar. I'm looking over at the participant list to see if there's any new names, but my purpose or presumption tonight would be if there's some new folks that haven't spoken, we'd rather hear from you first. What we could do is if you're looking, our co-host can see a raised hand. And I think we could get underway.
Yeah, just for clarification under the raise hand, it should be, if you go into manage participants, there should be a little button to raise hand. And then you can keep that up until your comment is done, and then I can remove your hand from being raised, or you can do that too. And then we'll go through everything.
So Chris, that comments to the listening public out there? I mean, they go to participant?
Yeah, yes, they go into the participants or whatnot. There should be a little button for the raised hand.
Well, let me try it so I understand what you're saying. I click participant. Yeah, then I see a raised hand. Is my hand raised? And I just lowered it. Okay. All right. Am I still live?
All right, so first raised hand I see from Lauren.
Okay, Lauren, you're on. Go ahead, Lauren.
Hi there.
Hey.
My name is Lauren Cherry and I'm a village resident. I've sent email to the board with my full thoughts and I'm just going to share a few here.
I'm sorry, could you say it again? You broke up a little bit.
Sorry, I said I sent an email to the board with my full thoughts, but I'm just going to share a few here during this public comment.
Okay.
I'm going to go through, starting at the beginning. There's a quote that speaks of upgrading all of our operations, including police. Executive Order 203 requires reform and reinvention. I don't think the focus should be on upgrading. I personally would like to see a comprehensive assessment of current policies and their effectiveness, as well as a consideration of reduction of police programming or replacement by community programming where possible. Rather than equate expansion with improvement, let's pull back in areas of policing that do not meet our community needs. To identify what our community needs, we could reference reports and identify crime trends by using the data discussed under transparency and accountability. Once we're able to get a better idea of what the crime trends are in our community, we can then make sure that our police are supported in these interactions. Personally, I think the purchase of the body cameras was too premature. I think we should have first assessed through hard data where our police needed support and then figured out what that looks like and how to get it to them. Under the building trust section, there's a quote that says that the Red Hook Police Department currently holds respect and trust. The village looks for and expects community policing with a guardian mindset. This is an assumption that needs to be backed up with evidence. Personally, I don't want that. I'd rather have a partnership. A survey would be a great way to get a better idea of what the community members want. Part of this building trust is asking for community input. I also want to support the ask for seminars for the community, such as Know Your Rights for students, as well as non-transactional police interactions, where police are not in power positions, but are on common ground with community members. Under clarity and access of information, I'd like to renew my ask that I brought up at several meetings for the names, if not also the photos of police officers to be on the website. We should be able to know who is policing our community. Under future, I'd like to say that I support this formal advisory committee, but I think that it would be important to have a model that we can follow to help form it. And I'd like to propose a co-produced policing model. I've sent a link to all of the members for their reference, but I'll say that I think it's interesting and progressive, but also doable in our small community. I think it's also important that on this committee, it's important that marginalized individuals are on the board, as well as young people and those who have higher rates of police interactions. And finally, I'll just say that I want to highlight a couple things that I think are missing in this report or in this draft, and that is alternative for police interactions, mental health, social services, as well as equity work, as there was nothing new under that section. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, Chris, I don't know if I'm muted. Am I live?
No, you're good now. Yeah, I heard the background noise. I'm not exactly sure what that was in that. Everyone seemed to be muted. other
Yeah,
than Lauren.
Yeah, just
Um,
from protocol, I saw people in the chat. We could hear Lauren, but it sounded like a dog was scratching its ear or something. I don't know what it was. It might have been papers shuffling
Yeah.
on the desk. But
For I see the Laura Hart comment too. She doesn't have her audio joined, so I don't even have the capability to mute her. So I
she's
don't
on the
think it
phone.
should be
She's on the phone with me here.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. Yeah, I don't know. It seems like that noise went away. But Lauren, we could hear what you said. It was a little background noise going. But thank you. Who's want to speak next?
Next up is I see Bailey.
Bailey. Okay, Bailey, you're on.
Hi, good evening.
Hello.
My name is Bailey Williams. I live in the village of Red Hook at 20 Elizabeth Street. So I'd like to begin just by quoting from the proposed plan. It reads, "All of us have the duty to protect and prevent this, and a special moment in time is here. This moment is an opportunity to show clearly, strongly, and publicly Red Hook's dedication to a community that is safe, welcoming, accessible, and inclusive of all who enter our little village. It is crucial that we do not shy away from the important work that still lays before us, that we do not do only what has been required of us, but that we make a plan that fully represents our goals, vision, and commitments to the pursuit of a fair and equitable society." My ask to the board tonight: does this plan fully present that vision? Is this plan fully representative of our goals? I recognize the time and efforts that have already gone into the creation of this proposed plan, and it is with full respect for the value of those efforts that I ask, is this the very best that we can do? Are we fully satisfied with the plan as it stands now? Or is there room for improvement? Doable improvements, proactive additions and changes that require little to no extra money from the budget, only strokes of pen to paper or fingers to keyboard to get started. When looking over the plan, I see good intentions and positive steps, but I also see some missed opportunities. In the section on transparency and accountability, it does not directly state what information from reports will be available to the general public and how that information can be accessed. Body cameras are promised, but without clear outlining of procedures surrounding the cameras or captured footage. I would ask that the plan include clear criteria for when the officers will activate cameras, who has access to that video, and how often footage is reviewed. In regards to the inclusion of the role of the Dutchess County Commission on Human Rights in the plan, it's imperative that the purpose and role of the commission is not misrepresented. The commission is not currently empowered as an investigative body or with the empowerment to conduct a formal police complaint review. There is no existing formalized and clearly communicated process for civilians to make a complaint about the police. That's not acceptable. A lack of formal complaints in a system that is not set up to fluidly allow them is not a bragging point. It could be an indication of a serious issue with accessibility. And if this is an oversight, then this is the time that we can fix it, now. I would recommend that the role of the proposed volunteer advisory board be expanded and empowered to receive, investigate, and address police complaints. In regard to setting up this process, I offer these two recommendations from the Human Rights Watch on developing independent accountability and oversight mechanisms. 1, establish an independent community oversight body with full access to police records, subpoena power, authority to conduct investigations, and the power to discipline officers and command staff. 2, collect data on police activities disaggregated by race, gender, ethnicity, sexual orientation, disability, and other relevant markers, and make that public. This police reform plan is an opportunity to ensure that Red Hook is the community that we claim it to be. It is an opportunity for positive change, for growth, for deepening of trust. I ask the board, is this plan our best effort? Does this plan show our commitment, our values, and our goals? A special moment in time indeed is here. Will we make the most of it? Thank you.
Thank you.
And at the moment, I don't see any other raised hands.
Okay. We'll give folks a moment.
right, and I do see one now from Jill.
Jill? Jill, you're on. I don't know if we know you. Could you state your name and address?
Hi. Yes,
Oh,
Jill Lundquist. I live in Barrytown, town of Red Hook, not in the village.
I didn't.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm on my phone, so I have sort of limited access because for some reason I cannot get into any of these Ring Central meetings on my laptop. So anyway, as long as you can hear me, that's all that matters.
We can see and hear you.
Okay, I can't see you, but that's all right.
Okay.
I understand that the Rhinebeck committee that is also working on this project offered to join with Red Hook in some aspects of this work, and that this request was turned down by Red Hook. I don't know more details than that, but this seems like an opportunity lost and would suggest that that possible collaboration be reconsidered. I also understand that Ulster County has quite a good, not perfect, but quite a good proposed plan, and would suggest looking at that to see if there's anything useful in it that we might want to implement in Red Hook as well. That's all.
Thank you. What do you see?
Right. I do not see any other raised hands at the moment.
Chris, I'll go if nobody else has raised their hand. I can't figure out how to raise my hand.
Awesome. Perfect.
Kind of unmute and go with it. Hey, I'm Sarah Imboden, and I am a Tivoli resident. I am not a resident of the village of Red Hook, but I appreciate this opportunity to communicate with you as a resident of the town of Red Hook. And I sent you an email, but it was right before your meeting, so I'm sure you haven't read it, but I just wanted to recap it for the public here, just so it's a matter of record. I mentioned two things. One, well, I guess I'll just say three themes. One is that I know that the board cares a lot about Red Hook. You know, you wouldn't be on the board if you didn't take so much time and energy to do this work. And so I want to thank you for engaging in it, because I think sometimes when we get these mandates from the state, I know as a former town board member, you know, it's easy to kind of see it as a box checking exercise. A lot of the time it's sort of a one size fits all kind of criteria, and it doesn't always feel meaningful to our local context. So I just want to thank you for engaging in it the way you have, because I think you have tried to engage the public, and considering that it's a pandemic, I know that's really challenging. And I would just say the two things that stood out to me when I read the report are that I don't get the sense from the report about what stakeholders you've really engaged as you went through this review process. And so I'd recommend that you add that to the report, what kind of stakeholder engagement you did, and that you would think about adding in the report a plan for future stakeholder engagement, so that it's not just a one-time thing, but that going forward you show that you're interested in hearing from the public overall, like someone, I think Lauren mentioned about, you know, having some kind of complaint form or some other way, maybe it's not complaint, right, but some kind of way of interacting with the public. And in general, I thought the report and I've seen some of the meetings on this, just in general, the way the meetings are conducted, it just feels very defensive to me. And I understand how that can be when you, again, have invested a lot of time, and our police officers, I think, are really committed to Red Hook. There's that sense of like, we need to just kind of close ranks. But I'd really invite you to see this as an opportunity to be curious about how the community feels about its policing and what kind of needs are being met or not met. And I don't see that in the report. I don't see a sense of curiosity about what could happen in the future, what new formats could be embraced, what ways of interacting with the public could happen, what new formats like policing in the community could take, other than maybe some walking routes. So I just ask that you think about that when you look at the report from an outsider perspective, a member of the community that hasn't been engaged in this. Does it read as though you are actually interested in what the public thinks about this going forward?
Because the one last thing I would say is that obviously it's impossible for you to have all the best ideas in this really tiny period of time. And Red Hook Police has to serve the community for generations, right? So there's a way, I think, in the report to point to the way moving forward that you will continue to think about this and think about police reform not as like a tiny one-time thing, but as something that you're kind of committed to going forward, reviewing and thinking about actively, and continuing to educate yourselves and the public about and interacting with the public. You know, that it's sort of a long arc and we're all in it together. And I think there's a way to say that without saying that you know all the answers right now, because obviously that's impossible. And I do think the community will be behind you if you can communicate that and just show, you know, how invested you are in the process, not just right now, but moving forward. So anyway, thanks for your time and good luck.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm making notes with everybody speaking, but I like that idea of the graphic of a long arc. Sounds kind of a cool concept to incorporate somehow.
Great. And just to reiterate for people that may have come in later, the raise hand button should be under participants. If you see that on your computer, to click that button, but that worked out anyways. I do see a raised hand from Dr. Kahan Sablo.
Did you say from Kahan? I'm sorry.
Yeah, yep.
Okay. Kahan, you're on.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity to speak again this evening. I've been in attendance at all the meetings. It's been good to watch the progression of the meetings and the flow and the content of the meetings to this point. Very appreciative of the work that's gone into getting us to this point in compliance with the mandate. There are some things that I would just summarize. I won't take long. Some of them have been mentioned before. Is that this is a good community that is obviously has feelings for its police and obviously want good police services governing their actions. I do think there is still an obligation to consult with members of the community about their policing experience, and that is an essential part of transparency. And I don't know that fully that has occurred. Yes, there have been conversations, but has that occurred to the fullest extent? As I shared with you and some members of the community, I did begin that process at Bard College, doing an assessment of what were the campus community's interactions with the police. Some of you received that. Survey's been open for about 2 days. We have about 140, 150 responses. If you can open it, it's in the chat. Depending on your Gmail status, that may or may not happen, but my commitment is to have that to you within the next 2 to 3 weeks to say this is what at least some members of the BARD community who have had interactions or felt the need to comment share. I believe it's that sort of transparency and open dialogue is where we and all communities should be, that we're open to hearing what people have to say. Some of it will be absolutely great and some of it will be concerning, but again, those are opportunities for improvement, not anything that anyone needs to be defensive of. So I would encourage those who make those decisions to engage in some sort of data collection. I'm willing to assist on the end of Bard College. One of the areas that I did mention is to not be complacent if there are absences of complaints. As I've shared in previous meetings, there are very legitimate reasons why people don't make complaints to police officers, and it may not have anything to do with any particular officer on a shift, but nevertheless, those complaints are real. Red Hook is part of a national dialogue that's going on regarding policing, some of which is rooted in a lot of pain, and we have to be sensitive to that. So I would just ask that as we move forward, we would be sensitive to various methods in which people can alert someone of a concern. Finally, I would hope that this particular meeting, although the executive's order will expire in August, April, as far as us moving this particular document along, it is my final hope that this is the beginning and not an end, that there's mention of continued meetings, but to examine what is the real authority of the individuals that will be involved in that, the role that those individuals would play, the consistency of the people who would serve in that role, and that be taken very seriously. When people are volunteering their time, they want that to be well spent. But there is more work to be done. I think just the preliminary data that's being shared indicates that there are areas and opportunities where we can grow as a community, and I hope that you will take some of those seriously. And I've enjoyed several of these conversations and would love to remain engaged in this work as we begin, not in this work. Thank you.
Thank you, Kahan.
Great. And I do not see any other raised hands at the moment.
Okay. We'll give it a minute. Looks like we opened at 7:05. It's now 7:30.
Yeah, I do see one from Savannah now, though.
I'm sorry, Savannah, did you say?
Yeah, Savannah.
Savannah?
Hi.
Well, Savannah, you're on.
Hi, I am Savannah Williams. I live at 47 West Market Street in Red Hook. I just wanted to echo Dr. Sablow's comments about the communication being open, and when complaints are not necessarily officially filed, that they're still treated with respect. And I want, moving forward, to be able to create an environment where people who share their experiences are listened to and treated with empathy and respect. A couple weeks ago when I shared my experience, it was not received very well, and I know that it was really hard for me to speak up about something that I experienced. And as I said last time, I'm a person of privilege. I'm white, I'm a woman. And so I just want to, going forward, when people come with, like, for example, the survey that Dr. Sablow sent out to the BARD students, when those results are read and studied, I want all of the comments to be taken with empathy and respect for the people who have made those comments and what it takes to write down those experiences that they've had. And so, yeah, I'm just looking forward to moving forward with being present when people express what they've gone through and responding with empathy and understanding. Thank you.
Thank you, Savannah. Okay, seems like we've hit a point. Thanks to those who've given comments. Some we heard from other meetings from, but thanks for coming across again and some new ideas, which like I said, I took notes as with the board.
Just to interject, I do have a hand raised from Aaron, but I don't know.
Okay, Aaron Kanan, Aaron?
Yeah.
Okay, Aaron, are you hearing us? You can have the floor, Aaron.
I'm hearing you, yes. Hi, I'm Erin Canan. I'm at 30 Starbarrack Road, and I have been in Dutch now for 25 years. I'm also a parent of 2 Red Hook children. I don't have a ton of substantive or different information that I would contribute, but I did want to go on record that I think that much of this is about the process and the evolution of the kinds of conversations that we can maybe start to have as a community, and I think are happening in some arenas, but maybe not in others. And that this could be a model of a practice of a way that we can continue to be in community across sectors, from education to nonprofits to colleges to businesses, that we really examine and connect around difficult issues in our community, and that this is an opportunity that I think is unique to the village of Red Hook, because you're one of the municipalities that falls under this mandate. and that we could use this as an example of how we could engage in community. So I think it's important that getting through the initial concerns, defensiveness, that we really start to unpack and examine how we might use this to say we had difficult conversations, we made change, and now this is how we can do this as a collective, because we can hear difficult things, we hear them, and then we realize that we can grow from them, and it's all about a learning experience. And education is really one of the, it is the industry of Red Hook. And as a Bard College, longtime Bard College administrator who has had many difficult conversations over the years, I know what it can feel like, and I very much have appreciated all of the members of who are in service to this community. But I do think it is a missed opportunity if we don't really take full advantage of how we might turn this into a practice rather than just a moment. And I think one of the reasons why we're in the position we're in now nationally is because we don't see these moments as a practice. And I would just encourage us to, and it's a reminder to myself as well, that we just continue this practice and try to take into account that things are evolving and there's different expectations that just happen in public service, and that this is an expectation I think that's only going to grow, and so we should be responsive to that in our community. So thank you.
Thank you, Erin. Appreciate it. Okay. I think if the board wants to look at our agenda for tonight, we are in the public hearing now, continued from 2/8. Like I said at the opening of this meeting, we deliberately kept the 10-day window in 2 sessions. And we've been incorporating comments and ideas all along, especially the public pieces of it here, the formal public hearing pieces. I don't know if the board had any thoughts, but I'm inclined to keep the meeting going, but it's a formal technicality where we actually close the public hearing. And then we continue the meeting, but it's the main reason for tonight was to keep dialogue and interaction with the various groups and work in the public comment world here. That all said, I don't know if any particular board member want to interject anything, but my thinking is I would entertain a motion that we close the public hearing. It doesn't mean we're ending the project or ending anything to do with the project. It's just we would take a formal piece of comment down, but we're certainly still here. We're still here for informal dialogue, and we're still working on the project. There's a lot of things we've learned and heard, and we'll roll and keep working on what we call the plan. So that being said, any board member want to say anything?
Ed, this is Charlie. What is the timeline? What is the schedule for formal adoption of a plan?
Sure. Yeah, I'll repeat it for everybody. The executive order itself has a date to be submitted to New York State of April 1, 2021. The way it falls into our calendar and our meetings and so forth is we wrap up the public comment piece tonight. Then our next formal meeting is March 8th. That's our March monthly meeting, Charlie. And I had circulated, and I've read components of this before, but the state actually has a police reform and reinvention collaborative plan certification form. So what I envision is at our March 8th meeting being prepared to pass a resolution adopting the certification form and the plan we've come up with. I think a big thing where you might be leading to, and we get a lot of this from tonight's public comment and other nights as well, and internally ourselves, what we're working on, and perhaps Will Noonan can help on this a little bit. We do not envision this as April 1, it's over, it's done. In fact, most of the work begins then. It's in our world, April 1's not that far away. It's 6 weeks. certain things we've initiated, for instance, the body worn cameras, but they're not even delivered yet. So we're working on, to answer your question, those are the deadlines, but I liked when Sarah and Bowden spoke, the word future came up, as with some other speakers tonight. And this is not an end game, this is a beginning game. And what I find kind of interesting and positive too is, as a board, especially pre-COVID, we did a lot of work on various projects, like we say, it was environmental, economic, different things we work on a lot here. And we never really got too much public interaction because people didn't tend to come to our physical meetings, but we get so much more input with the digital world now, the virtual world. It's kind of interesting to me, but we still do have analog completion date of that April 1, 2021, Charlie.
And as far as public comment goes, I mean, this is, if we close the public hearing, people can still submit comments. And what about the BARD survey as far as seeing, trying to get that be as complete as it can be?
Yeah, what I would entertain is, we need to finalize our plan, meaning we have to take all the time. There's a point where, and I believe it's tonight, where we end the comment, but we're not ending the input. I mean, it's, as all elected officials, we talk, we see, we hear, we interact. We're not, but we need to be able to pull what we had, what we've heard, and make some final product that we can work on March 8th. March 8th is what, today's 18, so 2 weeks, two and a half weeks. So we have to give ourselves time to get that. I'm not saying we're not going to change. And the board, you've all made notes and had input too. It's but I don't see a formal public comment able to continue in the nature of the formality that we're talking here, where it's notice to the press. It's it's a real formal village law kind of process.
Right. No, I understand the process. I mean, I think that survey, I mean, 2 days worth of responses, and there's been a lot of responses to that, which is, is going to be very helpful as a, an insight into the BARD experience. And I think, continued responses to that survey will be very useful to the committee, the review committee, or this entity that we need to create to help, bridge that gap between the residents and the police department through the village board. And so I look forward to seeing
I think he said
that work continue.
Yeah, you had what, 190 something responses so far. I think 196, I think. We will want to see that. But we have had our own community forums. We've had input from other sources. The survey is not the only source of information that we're going to be guided by. And in the end, it's the village board that monitors and manages the police department, and we have to write a plan. It's going to be us writing the plan with all the input we can get.
All right, and just to interject, I see a couple more raised hands. One from Jim Rogers.
We haven't closed the public comment yet, so we're discussing whether we should, but Mr. Rogers, you've got the floor.
Mayor, did I sneak in under the wire?
Yeah, you're good, you're good.
Okay, thank you. I've been to a few of these meetings, certainly not all of them. I haven't put in the kind of time that the board has put in or other members of the public, but it's sort of the dialogue piece or the lack of dialogue piece that interests me. And I wondered, I actually have an interest in what various board members think about all of this, right? Well, the process as it's unrolled so far has sort of been like, we'll start, doing this report and we'll take input and, we'll listen, but I have no clue in hearing all this, whether various board members think we need the kind of reform discussed, we don't need it. They agree with statements that are made. They disagree. They think people are factually accurate. They think people are way off the mark. That the needs, that the questions raised are valid. So in the public hearing part, it's really just sort of been, I think, more listening. And so I have curiosity as to the dialogue part of it. And the dialogue part would sort of generate some sense that the aspiration that everyone's saying they have, which is that we want to keep working together, is actually happening. So like the work would actually be someone says something to the officials who are the town board, and one of those officials has a response at some point during, the public engagement, like on these meetings, that there would be the actual, dialogue part. I think would be valuable, rather than saying, let's keep dialoguing. Why don't we actually dialogue? Like right away, like now, like at one of these meetings, maybe. So that's what occurs to me. And I think that's where the hard part is. That's where the tough part is. And I think a lot of folks, but if I was a public official, would I be jumping up and down to disagree with what the public is saying in the meeting? Probably not. Or would I, it's easier just to hear what everyone says, digest it, produce a report, and let's move on to the next meeting. But perhaps there's a way to actually dialogue back and forth during these sessions with the public, so that the work actually gets started rather than a plan for the work to start. And but I want to emphasize that I have not been in attendance as much as everyone else has, so maybe I missed that part, and that's all I have to say.
Where did Ed go?
I think he may be frozen.
Oh no, Jim, you froze Ed.
I could do that. It's he wouldn't be the first.
No, I thought those were good comments, Jim. I mean, this formal process of the public hearings is, as Ed, was at pains to point out, we're meant to be getting public input and not necessarily having a ongoing back and forth dialogue during the hearings. I mean, I personally think that, it's been quite enlightening and, obviously very necessary to reach out and really sort of actively engage the community. And I have high hopes for a committee that we can set up that can, fill this role that we need to make recommendations to the board. It's clearly going to be a sort of an ongoing work, and I'm hopeful and expectant that our police department will, I mean, they answer to the village board. We work closely together. If we see recommendations and changes need to be made, we will, I presume, act on those as best we can.
Jim and Charlie, you kind of stole my thunder there a little bit. I absolutely see this as we're setting up a plan, and then we start implementing the plan. And and like you said, and we've said, it's an ongoing process, and not putting anything off, but getting the plan with all of the input that we've had, and I think the input has been great, but getting the plan together and then implementing the plan as we move along. I don't see where we're discounting anything, and that meeting whatever deadline we have to meet is one thing, but continuing the project, so to speak, is something that I feel that we're doing and we're going to do. And as a board member, that's what I would commit to.
All right, and I think Mayor Blundell did get booted off because of the internet, but he's back on. I passed him through my way here. So
I just like to say that I just like to say that I'm encouraged by the participation. I don't think we've had this many participants in many projects that we've attempted. Even though this is mandated by the state, it seems to be a lot of community interest, not just with people that have been here for a while, but also people that are coming in and seeing the benefits of living in a small village and being able to participate in these types of meetings. So I think we try to listen to everybody's concern. I do have a stack of all your comments that we do read and take seriously and then try to incorporate those within our plan. So I think along with, I agree with Aaron's comments too, that this should be a model of how we move forward with additional projects and how do we engage the community in our decision-making process. So it's all been very helpful and also very enlightening to hear everyone's comments and from different perspectives as well. So I want to thank you all for participating in this. And something will come from it.
Exactly what the other guys said. I've been taking notes as well. Yeah, I mean, this is hopefully, the beginning of moving forward and having all these people come in with, again, perspectives that we wouldn't have known. And yeah, I'm very optimistic, and we have had some really difficult conversations through this. But I think that, as with anything, having a difficult conversation can only help shed light on things. So I'm very, very optimistic on moving forward. So yeah.
I just wanted to say I really appreciate all the board members, speaking up and taking the time to talk, because I feel like that's very helpful in, moving forward with this stuff. And that we really need everyone's input, to actually do something that's positive. And I think this process will be positive, and I think it will benefit the community. Thank you.
I'm back there. Hey, sorry for the intermission I took, but I was listening to Jim Rogers and then one of his words got interrupted and everybody was frozen and the village apparently lost its internet connection for a moment, but I am back. I heard the board members speaking and Mel Carker too, I think there. So thank you. And so Jim had jumped in under the, we were talking about public comment piece ending, but not the public interaction or the project. So what we're talking about is a formality. Jim was asking for dialogue, but one main component of village law and public comment is it's really listening by the board. And that's what we've been doing these past two meetings. But the other ones, the whole collaborative plan has been with the stakeholders and different interest groups. We've had communications for quite a while with everybody, but I think it is time though to wrap up the formal public comment piece. Like I said, I heard the board members talking, but I was frantically trying to reconnect and start modems up again here. The way we do that in village operations is we make a motion to close the public hearing, and then we incorporate, like we said, at the onset of the meeting, we have all the written comment, we have the info from tonight. We'll work on all that.
And just to interject, I don't mean to interrupt, but I saw it in the chat. There is one more hand raised, but I don't know if the session is closing.
Sure. Who's that person?
It's David Marcusson.
David, you've got the floor.
Thanks, Ed, and I really have enjoyed the process, and I'm glad everyone is putting so much effort into it. I really liked the responses that I saw. There were so many on the BARD survey, and I'm wondering if, just in the interest of getting as much information from the public as possible, maybe not even as part of the public comment period, but after you end it, as a to enlighten the board in making the final edit. To put forth a survey like that for the entire community of Red Hook, I think would be a good way of really getting some insight into, you know, the stuff that you're not hearing about, and what the people want to hear. So that's all I really want to say, and that's with my other comments from last time. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, David. All right. Yeah, we did get the first draft, like we were saying before, of Kahan's 2 days length of survey data. So we'll be looking for that too, for more. Anyway, I would like to move that we bring this piece of it to a conclusion. The way we do that, I will move that we close the public comment, public hearing piece of the police reform project here at 7:55 p.m. on 18 February. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Was that Brent? Yeah.
Yep.
And any other discussion from board members? I'll do a roll call vote. Blundell will vote aye. Kowalczyk, I presume you're...
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Lang?
Yes.
And Ms. Norris?
Yes.
And Mr. Noonan?
Yes.
Okay. So good. I'll wrap up that part, and I'm going to flip back to my agenda. I put on there we could head to executive session if necessary, but I don't see anything necessary with that. Since this is a regular scheduled workshop meeting that had a specific purpose, it's still under the auspices of our third Thursday of a month meeting. So if there's public comment on any other issues facing the Village of Red Hook and in your minds, folks that are on there, now's the time to bring that to our attention. It's doesn't necessarily have to be on police reform. It's anything else that might be on your minds. So Chris, if you see any hands on that, we'll give folks a minute. Okay. Some internal business.
I do see a hand from Melkorka.
Okay, Melkorka, you're on.
Wait, I was actually wondering about that. There was a story about there was an thing in the news about that there was an audit about the website, and I was just wondering, is there like a plan for that? Is there,
Yeah.
are you guys?
Yeah.
Are you going to share anything with us or?
Sure. It's broader than website. It's IT, and I don't know the acronym. In other words, most are familiar, but information technology. If one looks at the controller site, and we'll be putting some more info out that we have to do, the paper carried, I don't know if it gave a link to the New York State Controller site or not, but the village board has already responded to that with what's called a corrective action plan. I'll be quite frank with everybody. That audit was done, if I remember correctly, it finished up the year 2018. And what they do is they give us immediate post-audit interviews, which myself and the village board and the staff here participated in. And it's actually rather problematic to me. And we had some serious problems with the auditor that we dealt with. One does not always like to blame an auditor, but we had serious significant issues with the controller's employee that we had, and it took them whatever now, it's really 3 years to generate their final report. The good news is what they really criticized us on was the way we handled IT internally. We use outside contractors. We've since changed who we use, upgraded who we use, unfortunately doubling to tripling the cost of what we have to spend on that. Trying to think what else they critiqued. They commented that some of our people had access to websites during the workday. And my response, it's written, we have a written response, like I said, on our letterhead, signed by me, approved by the board. We feel our employees do need access. We are in the year 2021. they can access the web. If we saw somebody abusing it, we would take care of that. But it's, you know, I think they're expecting us to go into each employee's browsing history at the end of a day and end of a week, end of a month, and then chastise somebody. But we actually operate efficiently as a business because we have access to the World Wide Web. And I don't know where they even get that criticism from. Some of their things, I think, I'm being frank, were outlandish. But the positive parts are we made changes years ago now, and that's the hard part about this. It's acting like it's new news, but it's not new news. What they did is whatever they did with their employee. Yeah, I don't know how much to say, but I had actually done a lot of complaining about the person that was sent to us, and he's no longer with the controller's office, is all I can say. And our response speaks for itself, and we're really disheartened. I come from a professional world where audits are a big part of operations. We all know what auditors are, and they are essentially learning experience for organizations. But parts of what they did was beyond the pale, I'll say. But look up, we do have a written response.
And where would I find that, just if I were searching for it?
Well, I know the controller's website has their report and has our written response as part of the document. You'll see our response. It serves as both a corrective action plan and a response. And I think you'll see me being a little terse in my response. It's we were really, really not happy with some of what we had to face. I could probably tell you things one-on-one separately at some point. There was issues with not the nature of the subject matter, but the personnel. Certain things are not copacetic with who was sent to our office. Anyway.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to find out about that.
You can tell I'm a little bit perturbed by that.
It is the hallmark of the comptroller's office audit, is the outlandishness of it. And that's their brand.
Yeah, it's, I don't know where, well, I have to be careful, I guess. One doesn't want to aggravate the auditors too much because they'll find a way. I also believe, based on my work experience, that anybody looking at anybody else's work product can find something to have an issue with. The question becomes what level, what depth do you dive into it and so forth. And just for the public, even their overview sheet, Mel Cork and others, is they say the village has 25 employees, which makes us sound like some relatively significant large entity. But when you look at it, we have probably 5-ish folks who sit on a desktop, and not even all of them are full-time. It gives rise to a question. We're not big enough to have an IT department, and we're not, we have to contract it out. And in the past, some of the board members, remember, we RFP'd for web, for internet and computer oversight. And, it's a big world out there, and we're always looking for the best option. We do feel we've got the best option now. We've got a great company working with us. It's all good there now. Thank you, Jim Rogers, too, though. But it's the nature of that department. It's what they get paid to do. Anyway, okay, so folks, we did some off-topic public comment. I'll just remind the board, next Thursday, we did set a special meeting for one of our other big projects, the budget. I did circulate about 11 pages of spreadsheet with, like I highlighted, it's not the tentative budget. That's an internal formal term for us. It's something that we can work on like we normally do in the workshop upstairs, but we'll have to somehow figure out a way between screen sharing and you guys having the printed copies in front of you. It makes certain projections and assumptions, as all budgets do. And right now it's dancing right around the tax cap, which is a good thing. But I think you all got that about a week ago, and well, we can talk individually if you have questions on any one line, but then, and and our main group, we can talk next Thursday. And I'll have to look up, like you all recall, we have a point in time in March where we have to come up with the tentative budget, and then it's still not final. For those listening, then we have same world, public hearings and so forth on budget, and we take input on that too. In regard to this world we're in tonight, in the earlier part of this meeting, I did put more money in for police training. I think we have a separate line in there. I think it's probably called police education is the line title, but consistent with what we're trying to do, and work that angle into the budget too. We had some board members speaking. I don't have anything more to say. Anybody else, board members, things you've come across in the 10 days since we met? Anything we need to talk about? I know Brent and I will be on some sewer work tomorrow. We can do that. For everybody who's listening and those that want to know, we open our sewer bids February 2-6, 2 o'clock here at Village Hall in some virtual fashion. There'll probably be 20-ish contractors out. We're going to put our sound system outside since we can't get them all in a room. And I think we talked at our main board meeting, but the protocol with contractors, they love to get the first word on where the bid numbers fall, even though we don't award the bid that Friday, a week from tomorrow. So you'll see a lot of action around Village Hall, and another one of our big efforts underway for the past, we don't want to think how long, right, Brent? Everybody, it's
many moons.
5 years at least, a real recent version of it. And anyway.
Ed, what time is that?
The bid opening?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's 2 p.m. on 2/6 February.
Okay.
So I think there'll be several of us in the building, just our engineer, our clerk, I think Ed and myself, and
yeah, I'm looking around the room. We'll stay
it's
separate.
It's a 40-page bid document, so the engineer will find the right page appropriately, and then we'll announce the bid. And like Ed said, there we had over 20 contractors attend our pre-bid meeting, and we're excited about that number too. It's good that people are interested in this project. So we'll see what happens next Friday.
And Brent, did you see that email from Gretchen Pinkel at RD?
I did.
It sounded, I liked the tone of it. It was like,
kind of optimistic.
Yeah. They're our funding agency for folks who don't know, and
USDA Rural Development, and Gretchen is acting, I guess, head of the state Rural Development for New York, and also represents the Middletown office on our behalf. So Red has been a point of discussion for a while at USDA.
Yeah, and with our outlook of pragmatic optimists, I'm hoping with the new administration and the national scene, if they get a stimulus, maybe they'll throw a ton more money that we can dovetail into somehow, to pick up a piece of what the bid might outpace what we have granted so far. So we can look at that optimistically, right?
Ed, is there any provision in there in terms of the labor, whether it's union, non-union?
Yeah,
I was going to bring that up.
I didn't know it, but it's prevailing wage. Our experience is the GC is higher from the whatever pertinent union it is. If it's the equipment operator or the general laborers in the trench, there's different labor levels that they pick from. But yeah, it's very, very highly regulated as far as goes to the point even where you buy your materials. Do you use U.S. steel? There's a lot of
okay, good
components that push it for the local, keeping the U.S. economy. And like we said at our last board meeting, it's going to be funding even the bid people that are interested so far. They're quasi-local. They're, I'll say, between Albany and Newburgh. So our money's going to be spent and felt locally.
And the state also requires us to respect certain MWBE requirements, which is minority and women-owned business enterprises. So the state has pretty high standards for what's involved, and sometimes it creates problems and some issues with contractors. But for those who work in the infrastructure business and deal with state funding, they gotta learn how to how to deal with them. And this is a requirement now by the state of New York, and
Yeah.
we are getting funding from the state of New York as well as from the federal government. So we have to subscribe to all regulations by both entities.
Yeah, and Brent, you're right. And I think right now the current NWBE number is 23%. So 23% of the job components have to be minority or women-owned business enterprises. So, yeah, we have actually an NWBE officer that helps coordinate that part within our organization. It's a lot of detail, a lot of work. It will be kind of exciting, man. We're going to see those bids come in and be like, yeah. But, anyway. All right, I think we're about done. 8:10 p.m. As is our custom, Mr. Brent usually helps us decide if we're hit all the topics and checked all the boxes that we had on our agenda.
I think we've hit on the topics.
Yeah.
Hit
right.
the items as well. So I would like to make a motion that we adjourn this evening's meeting.
I would second it, and maybe just to raise by hand, not on ring central hand, but if people on the board just want to raise their hands. I vote yes. I see Norris, Noonan up, and I don't see Lang. Is he still out there? Lang, you out there?
He's there.
We have a majority.
Hey, Charlie.
Okay, well, thanks to the public that was on, and thanks to the board. And we have a lot more work to do. And as Sarah said, the ARC will be. We're not quite done with the ARC here, and we'll be working on that current plan and the future aspect. And I have good hopes for all this. Thanks and good night, everybody. Bye bye.
Yeah. Good night. Night, everyone.